I absolutely love life. Life is amazing because it teaches us. God teaches us in so many different ways. And I believe one of the best ways that we are to learn from God and learn from life is to reflect on our life experiences. When we reflect on our life experiences, we are getting the treasure. We're digging the treasure out of life. So when we have memories and they stick to us, why are we remembering them? Is it really just because they're traumatic experiences, or we have experienced high levels of emotions this day or low levels of emotions that day? Why are we remembering these parts of our life? We have many ups and downs. Now, what if on one side we go through life and we never reflect on anything that we've ever been through? And on the other end of the spectrum, we reflect on everything and we learn as many lessons as possible. If we take these two people that lived nearly the same life in the beginning, and then we follow them for the rest of their lives, who do you think is going to be more successful? I would say that the person that's going to be more successful is the one that's learned from their experiences, that has listened for the lessons that God has been trying to teach us. One of my favorite quotes is that it's called the Vernon's Law. And I actually write about it in my book, that life is the toughest teacher because it gives the test first and then the lessons after. Much about my philosophy on being is essentially funneled around this idea that we are supposed to, as Samson did in an earlier video, we're supposed to revisit the tragedies of our past and those adversities that we have been through and learn from them, dig into them, get that treasure, get that wisdom. And today I want to share with you one of my stories. I used to do a lot of drugs, and that's where Be Addicted to Life comes from. Our addictions can destroy us, or they can be a tool used constructively to build a life that we could have never imagined before. And sometimes we have to stop and just be thankful. I got out of jail one day and I thought I was going to be this amazing street pastor. And I was trying to live the life that at first I thought God wanted me to do. I was sure I was supposed to go to this rehab. And as I got to the rehab, I knocked on the back door and they came to the door and opened it. And it was in the back of an alley and it was this big steel door, and this lady opens it and she says, "Yeah, if you want to come stay here, you have to wait for 4 hours and then we'll be able to open the door." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." The thing is, I didn't exactly wait. I decided that, it'd be a good idea for me to just go get high one last time. And so I leave. And I'm looking in the alleys and just looking for someone in Pinellas County, Florida. Is actually St. Petersburg. And I find this gentleman, and sure enough, he says that he can get me a pill that I want. And so I give him $20 and he comes back. He comes back with crack. And I told him, I was like, "I don't want this." And he said, "Well, this is what I got you." And he gave it to me. So I didn't know what to do with it other than go to my meth dealer's house. And he let me in. And I ruined it. I tried to use Kool-Aid for the first time and I destroyed it and I messed it up. So I asked my meth dealer, I was like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to go to this rehab and I wanted to get high one last time. Can you help me out?" And he says, "Sure." Now, I don't know what he gave me, but what he did give me, I mixed up and I pulled in my syringe, filled it up, and then I went to put it in my vein. As I drew the blood filled the plunger, and I would push on top of it. And that chamber, just nothing moved. The blood came in, but it would not go back into my vein. I pushed so hard that the plunger bent. And then I pulled it out, and I went like this, and sure enough, squirted out just fine. I'm like, all right, let's try this again. I went through this process 3 times. Finally, I said, well, it comes out just fine when it's not in my arm. So I pushed it all into a spoon and I drew up just a little bit. And I thought to myself, I'll just do a little bit at a time until all of this is gone. So I pulled up just a little bit, put it in there. Sure enough, it went straight in. I went to a different world. I ended up having a surge of energy. And then I told my meth dealer, I was like, I gotta go. So I leave. And I ended up losing my mind. I got on this bus. Well, first I go back to the rehab. And I was so out of my mind inside the rehab, I ended up leaving. There's a little bit of story goes there, but I met this guy and he said, pretend I'm doubting Thomas, and explain this to me, and he put his hand on me. And I'll never forget that he put his hand on me and he told me this. And then I left. Went through a series of events trying to race cars and buses to try to get back on the last plane because I was sure that this was the end of the world. I ran so fast I felt like I was floating as I'm chasing this bus. And then I fell over and the bus drove away. Sure enough, this man named Joshua picked me up. He says, don't worry, I'll get you on that bus. And in my mind, I was like, this guy must be Jesus, because Jesus' name was Yeshua. And I wouldn't get out of his car when he finally got me to the last bus stop in Tarpon Springs. I get out finally and he leaves. Sure enough, I'm sure he thought I was crazy, because reliving this story, I was crazy. And then I get back on the bus finally. Actually, I never got on that bus. You know, I just ended up going back to jail that day. I ended up catching a felony that day. I thought this gentleman was talking to me to let through her mind, and thought he was my dad, who was God. And I reached in his car door because that's what the voice was telling me. And this guy says, hey, what are you doing? And I said, you're my dad. He said, you're not from me. And sure enough, I just waited for the cops and I went to jail that day. But the point is this. The point is that little bit that I put into my arm sent me on this crazy trip right back to jail with a felony. Now, I bring it up because I know if I would have put all of that in me, I would have died. No doubt about it in my mind. I barely put anything into my arm, and it sent me on this wild ride that sent me back to prison, back to jail. Yet, something would not let it go into my arm. It let it go out of the plunger into the spoon. It let it go out of the plunger into the air, but as soon as it broke my skin, it would not let it go into my vein. Without a doubt, I would have died. And through God's grace, He saved my life. Yes, I ended up going to jail. And yes, you know, I look at this story and there's a lot of other questions. However, the one thing that is not a question is that my life was spared. And something supernatural happened that day that I know for a fact saved my life. So when you revisit the memories in your life, the tragic ones that might not make a lot of sense, the ones that if you write them, they make you want to cry, I promise you, if you sit with that in peace and you ask, what are you trying to teach me? What was I supposed to learn from this experience? If you wait just long enough, you will hear a voice and you will be taught a lesson. And this is what it's like to be addicted to life. You don't look at the tragedies in your life as something trying to hurt you. You see a loving creator that designed your life specifically for your improvement, that has been there since day one, no matter the choices you tried to make. He was there. I have many more stories like this in my book. Actually, that story isn't even in my book. I would love for you to reach out to me. I would love for you to tell me about some of the lessons that you learned, some of the treasures that were given specifically to you in a certain way, that you are the only person that has that gift. Be addicted to life.